Before dawn, off Somalia's coast, a lone Navy supply ship slows in a corridor where 17,000 ships risk everything each year. 98 pirate boats surge from the darkness, confident, heavily armed, and closing fast. But what the pirates see as their payday becomes something else entirely. A perfectly orchestrated trap designed to dismantle an entire criminal fleet in minutes. What happens next will redefine the war on piracy, and the cost of failure could shake global trade. The Gulf of Aden is a bottleneck unlike any other. Every year, roughly 25,000 ships, container vessels, oil tankers, and bulk carriers thread this narrow corridor between the Suez Canal and the Indian Ocean. That is nearly 70 ships a day, moving through waters where the coastline offers little cover and the lanes are packed close together. For global trade, this stretch is an artery. Analysts estimate that 10 to 15% of all seaborne goods, electronics, food, and energy depend on safe passage here. The stakes are measured not just in cargo, but in timing. A single disruption can ripple out, causing insurance premiums to spike and rerouting ships thousands of miles around the Cape of Good Hope. Naval planners call this area a choke point for a reason. The geography squeezes maritime traffic into a tight band, with commercial ships often separated by just a few miles. On the chart, the lane looks like a thin blue thread pressed against the coast of Somalia and Yemen. For pirates, it is a hunting ground. For navies, it is a constant source of risk, where the margin for error is measured in minutes. In the middle of this corridor, a U.S. fleet oiler stands out. Moving at 12 knots, it carries around 7 million gallons of fuel, enough to keep a carrier strike group operating for weeks. Its silhouette is unmistakable, long, low, and heavy, with a radar signature that rivals the largest merchant ships. The replacement cost for a modern oiler runs well over $500 million, and the fuel in its tanks is worth tens of millions more. Losing one here would mean more than a financial hit. It would threaten the operational reach of every warship it supports and force a carrier group to pull back or slow down. For pirates, a ship like this is the ultimate prize. If they manage to seize it, the consequences stretch far beyond the crew or the cargo. Hostages, ransom, headlines, and the possibility of forcing the world's most powerful navy to negotiate. In these waters, every ship is a target, but some are more valuable than others. And in this corridor, the pressure never lets up. Pirate networks along the Somali coast built their business on reach and numbers. The key to that reach was the mothership skiff system. Rather than staying close to shore in small wooden boats, pirate groups hijacked larger fishing trawlers and dhows and turned them into floating bases. These motherships carried fuel drums, spare outboard motors, food and water, everything needed to keep dozens of skiffs in the hunt for weeks at a time. With that setup, pirates could strike targets up to 300 nautical miles from shore, far beyond the range of local patrols or coast guards. The economic logic was simple and ruthless. At the peak of Somali piracy, around 2010 and 2011, pirates held as many as 49 ships and over 1,000 hostages at once. Ransoms for a single ship often reached several $1 million. The proceeds were divided among gunmen, financiers, clan leaders, and support crews ashore. Each attack was a high-risk investment, but the potential payoff dwarfed anything available on land. A slow-moving fleet oiler in a crowded shipping lane offered the kind of prize that could bankroll an entire syndicate for years. The plan was to overwhelm defenses with speed and sheer numbers. launching nearly 100 skiffs from motherships scattered across the horizon and converging on a single target. If even one boat managed to reach the oiler and force a surrender, the pirates could demand a ransom larger than most annual clan incomes. Success would send shockwaves through shipping markets, spike insurance rates, and attract new recruits to the trade. But massed attacks like this required tight coordination. Pirate bosses pooled resources, timed their launches, and relied on lookouts and radio traffic to avoid early detection. The motherships became command centers, moving skiffs into position, refueling engines, and relaying instructions. For the pirates, the promise of a record payday justified the risk of sending 98 boats into a single, high-stakes strike. The logic was clear. If the operation worked, the payoff would echo from the beaches of Puntland to the boardrooms of shipping insurers around the world. Synthetic aperture radar satellites sweep the coastline, sending back tiles dotted with faint returns. Most days, these patterns match the rhythms of fishing and coastal trade. Clusters near villages and lines of boats drawn up on beaches. This week, the algorithms flag something different. A spike of tiny echoes packed tight in 3 coves, notorious for pirate launches. The system's alert is automatic, an anomaly in density well above the seasonal average for this stretch of the Puntland coast. On another screen, the automatic identification system dashboard updates in real time. Commercial ships and registered trawlers broadcast their positions every few seconds, creating a digital map of the sea. In the flagged area, the board is blank. No automatic identification system signals from the beach. No pings from the dhows moving offshore. The absence stands out as a pocket of darkness where the system expects to see traffic. Experience says this is rarely a good sign. Pirates run dark, blending in until the moment they launch. Meanwhile, a merchant hotline report arrives at the regional center. The message is terse. It reads, "Multiple small boats, no lights gathering near old fish camp. Possible mothership present." The report matches the synthetic aperture radar anomaly, but the details are still raw. No numbers and no clear intent. Just the uneasy sense of something building offshore. Each of these streams, satellite radar, automatic identification system analytics, and merchant calls, captures only a sliver of the picture. Alone, they raise questions, but offer no answers. The clues pile up, waiting for a human analyst to connect the dots and decide what, if anything, is about to break loose in the shipping lanes. In the operations center, the atmosphere sharpens as the lead analyst reviews 3 days' worth of satellite radar, AIS gaps, and merchant reports. The data points, clusters of faint SAR echoes, blank spots on the AIS map, a spike in VHF chatter, have been scattered and ambiguous until now. But when overlaid, the pattern breaks from the norm. The density of small craft off the Puntland coast is not just high, it is off the charts for this season. What began as a 72-hour watch box condenses overnight into a 24-hour threat window. The analyst's model, built on patterns from dozens of previous raids, now predicts a mass sortie at 3:18 GMT, an unprecedented concentration of skiffs launching in near-perfect synchronization. The confidence threshold passes. In the next briefing, the analyst walks the command team through the overlay. 3 coves, each packed with motherships and skiffs, all dark on AIS, all shifting slowly toward the shipping lane. The map animates forward. If the current vectors hold, 98 skiffs will converge on the oiler's projected position within hours. The numbers are not guesswork. They are the product of fused radar, merchant hotline calls, and predictive analytics. The operations officer leans in, confirming the timeline. The decision is triggered. The bait ship will hold course, and the kill box will be set. There is no more ambiguity. What started as a series of weak signals has become a countdown. Every minute now matters, and every movement is tracked against the clock. Rules of engagement for this operation were drafted with precision and restraint. Before any weapon could be fired, every contact had to be positively identified, with no assumptions and no shortcuts. Legal advisors and senior commanders reviewed the escalation ladder step by step. They moved from radio hails and bridge-to-bridge calls to visual warnings such as flares, loud hailers, and searchlights. Only if those measures failed, and if the skiffs closed with weapons clearly visible, would disabling fire aim for engines or steering. Lethal force was authorized only in response to a clear and imminent threat to life, never as a first resort. Aboard each ship, medical teams stood ready for casualties on either side. Helicopters carried trauma kits and stretchers, and surface action groups rehearsed medevac routes to the nearest hospital ship or coalition base. The operations planning documents required that survivors, pirate or sailor, receive immediate care, and that every action be recorded for later review by legal officers. This framework was not just policy. It was a shield against error, ensuring the Navy's response would be both effective and defensible. In the words of one legal officer present at the final briefing, "We will act within the law, or we will not act at all." The oiler's course is set to follow the main commercial track, broadcasting a steady AIS signal, just like every other merchant ship in the corridor. Its navigation lights cut through the dark, visible for miles, and its speed remains locked at 12 knots, predictable, vulnerable, and precisely what the pirates expect from an easy target. But the surface picture is only half the story. Less than 20 miles away, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer shadows the bait ship, running under strict emission control. Its active radars and external communications are silenced, blending the warship into the background noise of the sea. Only the operations officer and a handful of specialists monitor the tactical display, tracking every contact with passive sensors and with data relayed from distant patrol aircraft. The destroyer's position is updated by a secure data link, never by open radio. Meanwhile, an MQ-8 unmanned aerial vehicle orbits high above the engagement zone, relaying live video to the Combat Information Center. The execution order is time-stamped 0311 GMT. At that moment, the hidden force stands ready, weapons loaded, sensors primed. The bait ship's unaltered AIS profile and steady track draw the swarm in, while the real teeth of the operation remain hidden until the final moment. At 0402 Greenwich. Meantime, the geometry of the kill box is set. 98 skiffs, engines roaring, close in from 3 vectors, their wakes converging on the oiler's slow-moving track. The destroyer's Combat Information Center calls out the range, 10 nautical miles and shrinking fast. In the air, an MH-60R Seahawk banks hard, crew scanning the surface through infrared. Contacts everywhere, dense enough that the radar plots overlap. The pilot's voice is clipped. Visual on lead skiffs, 30+, closing at 30 knots. Weapons tight, awaiting clearance. On the bridge below, The operations officer watches the digital map as the swarm enters the final ring. The destroyer's main gun slews to bearing, 5-inch shells loaded for airburst. The order comes down. All stations execute. In the first 90 seconds, the opening salvo tears across the densest group. Plumes of water and flame erupt as engines are shredded, hulls splinter, and fuel ignites on the surface. Fire control logs would later show dozens of wakes simply ending at once. The Seahawk rolls in, side doors open, door gunners walking bursts across breakout boats. Over the radio, the lead crew calls, "Engaging runners north, 2 engines out, 1 boat dead in the water." The math is relentless. At 30 knots, a skiff covers a nautical mile every 2 minutes. From the moment the kill box snaps shut, the pirates have less than 5 minutes before the cordon tightens and escape routes vanish. The destroyer's 25mm mounts direct the edges, picking off stragglers. Above, the UAV streams live video. Clusters of boats drifting, survivors waving improvised flags, others leaping into the water to avoid burning fuel. In the chaos, a handful of skiffs try to break for open sea, only to meet the Seahawk's shadow and the unmistakable thump of warning fire. Bridge-to-bridge calls go unanswered. The Oilers' course never wavers, holding 12 knots straight through the center of the engagement zone. Every asset is synchronized: destroyer, helo, UAV, and boarding teams in rigid hull. Inflatable boats waiting for the all-clear. By the 5-minute mark, more than 60 boats are either ablaze, sinking, or drifting powerless within the box. The rest scatter, but few make it far. For the crews in the air and on deck, the tempo is breathless. Target, fire, move, report. The next phase begins as boarding teams launch to secure survivors and evidence before the sun climbs above the horizon. The tempo changes as the last echoes of gunfire fade. Navy rigid hull inflatable boats dart out from the destroyer, their bows slapping against oil-slicked waves, engines throttled back for control. Visit board search and seizure teams move in tight formation, eyes scanning for weapons, hands ready on restraint gear. The boarding officer calls out instructions, his voice steady over the radio. He orders an approach from the stern, tells teams to keep engines clear and to check for any movement. Most skiffs are already drifting, engines shot out or fuel lines severed. Some pirates sit slumped, hands visible, while others kneel with arms raised above their heads. The teams board in pairs, one sailor covering while the other climbs over the gunwale. Each skiff is checked for weapons, radios, and documents, anything that links the crew to the attack. AK-type rifles, a few battered rocket-propelled grenades, and boarding ladders are stacked in the bottom of more than a dozen boats. The evidence is bagged and logged, marked with time and GPS coordinates. On the largest cluster, the boarding leader signals for medical support. 2 pirates are bleeding from shrapnel wounds. Another shivers from hypothermia after leaping into the water. Navy medics move quickly, applying tourniquets and thermal blankets. Every action is recorded on helmet cameras, body language, condition of survivors, the state of each seized weapon. In total, 62 skiffs are found immobilized, either dead in the water or slowly taking on water from hull damage. Another 36 are captured intact, their engines disabled, but hulls still seaworthy. Each boat is searched for hidden compartments, extra fuel drums, or communications gear. The boarding teams document everything, knowing that each piece of evidence could be needed for prosecution in court. Survivors are transferred to the destroyer in small groups. wrists bound with plastic cuffs, guarded but not mistreated. The process is methodical. Names, photographs, fingerprints recorded. The visit board. Search and seizure leader checks the manifest, confirming the numbers. Dozens of pirates in custody, hundreds of weapons collected, and a sea littered with the remains of a pirate fleet. The operation moves from chaos to order, from battle to custody, as the Navy asserts control over the aftermath. The threat is neutralized, but the paperwork and the questions are only beginning. Somali piracy once forced global navies to rethink security on the world's busiest shipping lanes. Even today, 17,000 ships transit these waters each year, and they remain vulnerable to new threats, new tactics, and new ambitions. Every operation draws a line: deterrence or disaster. In this arena, vigilance never ends. What would you risk to keep the sea open? Share your thoughts below.